Rumors have circulated for years that the beloved Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., would be killed off, retired, or otherwise recasted. I don't understand a world without a Robert Downey Jr. Iron Man. For 10 years, fans of the Marvel comic universe have reshaped their idea of what Iron Man was, and for the new fans of Marvel comics, they only know an Iron Man played by Robert Downey Jr. There has been very little resistance to the Iron Man casting over all of these years. We have come to recognize that Robert Downey Jr.'s personality lifted Iron Man from just a central figure in comic book fan circles to mainstream and pop culture status. Though the casting seemed like a slam dunk role for Robert Downey Jr. by Iron Man director Jon Favreau, it wasn't apparent to much of the fan base, nor the Marvel executives themselves. Firstly, he wasn't a superstar actor before 2008, the year the first Iron Man was released. Yes, he is of course incredibly talented, but the public never recognized it by going to his films in droves. He has had critical acclaim for the likes of his portrayal of Charlie Chaplin, but for the younger crowd, I'm not sure you could name a movie of his released before 2008. I'm 33 and I can only recall him in the TV series Ally McBeal, which he was unfortunately fired from. Secondly, that brings us to another issue, why the casting of Robert Downey Jr. was difficult for Favreau. The reason Robert Downey Jr. was fired from Ally McBeal was his alcoholism and drug addiction problems. It was 2001 when police found him wandering the streets, most likely intoxicated and without shoes on. At this time, he was already on parole for another alcohol-related charge, and before that, he was arrested for possession of controlled substances and a weapon. He isn't exactly the squeaky clean figure you would imagine Marvel taking on, nor Disney keeping him as Iron Man when they bought Marvel the year after the first Iron Man was released. Eventually, Favreau's insistence paid off, and the Iron Man we all know and love was born. Robert Downey Jr.'s life was fraught with troubles which stemmed from his uncontrollable want to experience life, mixed with depression and arrogance. No one was going to tell him how it was or what to do. You then begin to realize that what he was in real life was a reflection of what Iron Man was going to be in the Marvel movie universe. A journey to redemption from a dark, dark place. Favreau picked him because Robert Downey Jr.'s Tony Stark will be, in more ways than one, fighting for atonement, much like his career as an actor. So why can't there be another Tony Stark or Iron Man actor? Well, it should be more obvious now that the role of Iron Man as we know it was modeled after a man who could convey real emotions as the character deals with success, loss, understanding what is right or wrong, and ultimately a reclamation of his soul. The question should be asked, who can better portray such a range of emotion genuinely? Oh yeah, there's tons of actors and actresses out there, but can you combine their ability with a truly unique charisma that Robert Downey Jr. possesses? It comes from an arrogant place in himself. It's accented by decades of not caring about anything other than himself in real life. He was selfish and self-centered admittedly and unabashedly so. Robert Downey Jr. wanted to truly enjoy life, and he found that he did not enjoy his previous work all that much. His want for fun translated to whimsical inventions in the movies, and his critical eye of himself and others is seen throughout his portrayal of Tony Stark. Unafraid of change and new information, always perfecting the next suit and the next range of defenses to save us from a future enemy. The next issue is Robert Downey Jr. is already cemented as Tony Stark. So if you were to replace him, how do you sell that to everybody? No one probably can. Even if a similarly talented person with similar real-life experiences were to don this suit, no one will buy it, maybe out of loyalty to the original. The interactions on screen with other Marvel characters would be really awkward as well. So let's say you don't replace him, but you kill him off instead. Everyone has assumed that Robert Downey Jr.'s days are up as Iron Man for many, many years. Popular opinion was that Avengers Infinity War was his last movie, and he would die at the hands of Thanos. Of course, that was not the case, but opinion now has moved to the next Avengers movie as the last of the Iron Man we know and love, along with Captain America, but I'll leave that for another video. Killing off Iron Man is an easy fix for the awkward relationships on screen. It prevents a backlash from the public, perhaps. It also allows for the audience to mourn and then move on. Why shouldn't the studios kill off Iron Man, though? Just like any business, Marvel wants to make money. Financially, it could be disastrous if Robert Downey Jr. wasn't in an ensemble film, such as The Avengers. Almost all the successful Marvel movies had him playing a lead role. All but one of the billion-dollar Marvel movies had his Iron Man in it. So if you can't kill him off and you can't find someone to replace him, what do you do with the 52-year-old year actor? Robert Downey Jr. doesn't have a multi-movie contract with the studio. He signs onto roles that interest him solely. It's actually up to the studios to write a script that he would then buy into if it's appealing enough to him. This is a great gig, as you can imagine, as he never is bound to appear in something that doesn't meet his expectations. But also, it should signal to you that he's very much a wanted commodity in the studio's eyes. Saying this, the day we don't see an Iron Man played by Robert Downey Jr. is the day he himself finds the role uninteresting. People say they can ease him out of the Iron Man role by slowly lessening screen time, by having him play a mentor-like role to the other Avengers. This obviously is incredibly uninteresting sounding already, so I don't think he would ever do such a thing. Though he has improved himself as a person, I don't think his natural arrogance would let him take a backseat. And he shouldn't have to take a backseat. He's an A-list actor who makes more money than almost anyone. This leaves out the possibility his Tony Stark becoming a Jarvis-like figure that the comic books sometimes portray him as. Tony Stark's mind was the basis for an artificial intelligence in the comics, and that could have been a way to keep his role subdued and Iron Man physically off-screen. What happens if Robert Downey Jr. says no more, or if the studios say no more? We know that Tony Stark is the manufacturer of all the tech and gear for the Avengers, but we've seen Shuri step into this realm with the introduction of Black Panther. Can we do without Tony Stark's inventions if Shuri shares her tech with the world? Sure, why not? Well, what we lose is the depth of his personality that made a movie like Civil War an incredible one, and my personal favorite. How do they give that same depth to Shuri? What challenges does she face that would help sell the audience on a dynamic person with ups and downs? We see Shuri's wit and confidence, but we need to have a story of highs and lows, successes and failures. We need to feel for someone to love them, and we have very little of that in other Marvel characters as they exist already. What about Riri, the 15-year-old that made an Iron Man-like suit in the comics, and ultimately who the mantle of Iron Man is passed to? I think audiences have a problem with a suspension of belief when it comes to youth. Marvel handled it really well with Spider-Man. Tom Holland's character's homemade suit and grounded personality made him really likable. We didn't have to try to understand how a high schooler would make technology equal to that of a much older Tony Stark. Without the aid of centuries of vibranium, in Shuri's case, how are you to deal with a young Riri filling the shoes of a genius Tony Stark with decades of experience in manufacturing, invention, combat, and the like? It's obvious that we have a big change coming soon with the Iron Man that we know. I'm not looking forward to seeing it, but it's bound to happen. It doesn't need to happen too soon, though. Just give us a couple more years, Robert. Thank you for listening, and subscribe if you'd like to know more about what I don't understand.